Hey, good morning, everybody. I think we'll get started if it's all right with Mickey and the rest of you. My name's Eric Rieker. I am an associate professor and field specialist in the specialization area of farm management with Ohio State University Extension and what we call our farm office team. My background is teaching ag. I taught ag for 11 years, and I was a county ag agent for about 11 years. And about 2.5 years ago, I took this field specialist job with Ohio State. You get in handouts because I'm an ag teacher at heart, okay? So here's your handouts. You're getting a survey because I'm a county ag agent also at heart, and we love surveys, okay? I'll explain the survey. And then as a field specialist, I've worked real closely with our enterprise budgeting team to work on all sorts of enterprise budgets. In particular, I really enjoy working on value-added enterprises, including specialty crops and organic grains. My personal life, my son's here today. My son Thomas is up front, and he might, as you're coming in, if we need to bring more handouts to you, we will. You should have them. We are part of a family farming operation in the northwest corner of Ohio near Toledo. If you've heard of the city of Toledo, we farm about 30 miles west of Toledo on Interstate 8090. We call it the Ohio Turnpike. We're very close there. We have been partially organic. Actually, this year we'll be about 90% certified organic on around 800 acres. So my nephew and my dad, my 80-year-old dad, my nephew, my brother, Thomas, and myself are all involved as well as our families. So Kelly and Aaron asked to talk about cost of production tools. 2025 is very interesting. We're coming off of 21, 22, 23, 24. Each of those years has very interesting characteristics from a farm management perspective. But let's kind of talk about 2025. So my key objectives for today, I have a quick farmer survey. As I do more and more work in organic enterprise budgeting, I survey farmers to get information, right? The organic data space is a little bit difficult sometimes to get good, clear data. And so that quick farmer survey, I'm throwing out that if you're willing to, you don't have to put an email on it, but if you choose to, I'll throw you in this figurative hat for a conference registration for the Ohio Organic Grains Conference. We're not just a flyover state. You're welcome to come through. So we've been doing that conference for about 3 years, and quite frankly, modeled it after Erin's program here, and she does such a nice job, and I'm honored to be here. The two big objectives I have today, or two cost of production tools that I really want to talk about, is our enterprise budgets, or anyone's enterprise budgets, just the fact that you use an enterprise budget ahead of the season, and number two, using on-farm research to make cost of production decisions on your farm, whether it's organic, conventional, parallel, whichever. If we have time at the end, I'll talk about one crop insurance win, because I work in that farm bill and policy space in some cases too. Within farm management at Ohio State, I'm probably one of the few people that understand, utilize, and talk openly about crop insurance. So I'm happy to talk crop insurance if you want to, in particular multi-peril policies and how they may or may not fit into organics. You see the quick survey I have here for you. In Ohio, we've been surveying kind of production practices, like organic production practices. There's 20 items that I've been kind of tracking over the last 3 to 5 years. If you use those practices on your organic farm, if you would circle each of those practices you use, and then kind of this question down below, or question, I think I call it 3, really interested in, this is a market dynamics question. I'm not sharing this with anybody except kind of synthesizing it on my own based on the only identifier I'm asking you to put on there is your state, but would like to know if you're planning to increase or decrease particular acres in total, but also as relative to a crop, and you'll see that. I'll get to the other questions. I interject them to break up the boringness of a survey. So when you get into drafting organic enterprise budgets, the two big questions are, how do you discover price? okay? And how do you discover yield? So in my position, we use a lot of averages. We use a lot of conversations on the organic price discovery. We use a lot of average data on the yield. And the awesome thing about averages are they're averages. They're great. The flip side is they don't apply to anybody. They're not accurate for anybody, okay, if that makes sense. And so they're good and bad. Also in this space, we have to worry about how do we identify variable costs. I have one variable cost question related to nutrients. The fixed cost perspective, I in particular love talking about these fixed costs. Land is interesting, but quote unquote easy. Labor and management and equipment are the tricky two. I'll refer to them later. Very long discussion. I'm going to try and get through a lot of content in 50 or 60 minutes. I want you to know that Ohio State is not the only folks that are in this organic enterprise budgeting business. There are other folks, other websites you can go to. Iowa State's decision maker. MSU has kind of a rotational enterprise budgeting. Penn State has a 3-year rotational summary. UW's got, as I found it, specialty crop kind of relative to conventional grains. What I hope is subtly different with Ohio State's is that we work really hard at kind of giving you this average trend line versus plus 20% on yield versus minus 20% on yield. I'll explain that. And also we're trying to do it on a yearly basis and then create a tool that allows you to make those adjustments. You have the photocopies of those that I'll share. If you're a digital person, you can take out your camera. I have this QR code scattered throughout the presentation, but this leads you to Ohio State's Farm Office website. And at this moment in time, this will lead you to I think all the way at the top is the 2025 enterprise budgets. And we are commingled with the conventional corn, soybeans, and wheat enterprise budgets. Okay, so when you get to that page on your smartphone, you scroll down partway and you'll see the 25 budgets and you'll see all of our archives. What got me interested in updating our enterprise budgets is that Ohio State, the last organic corn, which, I mean, it's king corn, right? We should be doing it every year. The last king corn organic enterprise budget was in 2009. Okay, has changed since 2009. And I think the first one that I updated was in 21. I was a county educator and looking to help transition our farm. And we Ohio State, didn't have great resources. And so you should have this in your screen. So let's talk about organic corn price discovery. What I do, I told you my crop insurance context. So this is the average corn RMA price, average the February price to the October price. So in 2011, we apparently averaged 1103. In the conventional space, the RMA prices in February plus the RMA prices in October divided by 2, the average was a 617. And so I just simply do a quick ratio analysis. Okay, this is what they were throughout. You know, we've gone from as low as 1.4 to a 2.3 in 2019. Generally speaking, when you take that average price ratio, it's 2 to 1 on the Chicago Board of Trade. Because the difficult thing, and you could look at my corn budget, and the difficult thing about organic price discovery is there's exactly zero grain buyers willing to give a new crop delivery price. Unless you're calling my bluff. How many of you can get a new crop price? There's some out there. There's a couple 2-for-1 deals out there. They're out there, but they're. Say that again.
Straight pricing without a 2-for-1.
Some okay. So there's some of that, and we sit on it for a while. I think the buyers sit on it. So if you're coming out of harvest in the fall of 24 and you're saying, I'm working on my cost of production in December of 24 for 25, it takes a while to get those bids, right? And so what I had historically done is said, or historically over the last 4 years, is used a 2 to 1 ratio on the Chicago Board of Trade for the conventional price. That looked a lot like this. Over 2011 or 2011 to 2024, again, that 2 to 1. And I would argue today, the best we can do is 1.75 to 1. Okay, that 2 to 1 is, I'm not sure we're seeing that all over. Okay, that's just my RMA analysis. Okay, I'll switch to soybean price discovery. I use the same method, and this worked in 21, 22, and 23. It started not working. Here was our price ratio for soybeans was 1.87. It didn't work in 22 when we had ban on imports from India. That blew things way out of the water from a real price perspective, right? This is not really working today because of what was the board trading? The board was trading 10 or 1050 new crop soybeans, okay? In Ohio, folks aren't gonna be happy with an $18.70 or a $19 price for fall delivery. A lot of them have contracts on in food grades. When I look at the chart for organic versus conventional, I would say that this RMA price ratio, the organic soybean market isn't really allowing me to use that when I discover price. And it's price, so we can banter about it all the time, right? And it's giving you a tool. What you're gonna see, that handout with the corn budget, that's the tool that I'm asking you to download and use. Similar in the wheat, I don't do the analysis. The wheat market is even more contorted. Okay, at moments in time, I'm not sure if any of us out here at the end, well, the projection, the RMA projection is about a $12 price on organic red wheat. How many of you can get a 12? This is very specifically from a crop insurance perspective is soft red winter. Yep, and my Ohio context is corn, feed grade soybeans, and soft red winter wheat. Good question. The question was, what kind of wheat? Soft red winter. So there's no way in wheat price discovery that I can use this. We have some guys in Ohio that locked in about last October, locked in a lot of 850 wheat. I'm not sure if you can get 850 wheat new crop this year. Can anybody get 850? Soft red? I know a lot of you up here grow some hard red, maybe hard red spring. So this is the most difficult part about writing these budgets, to try and make them a projection or an outlook. But again, I go back to, I was asked to talk about using the tool. And so the tool is really the Excel documents. Nothing fancy, just an Excel document with spaces for you to use. This isn't price forecasting, but this is Eric's price discovery that I'm using and how I use them, and they're in the footnotes. So in that packet that I provided you, I put a 705. That's the Argus price this week, U.S. average. Frankly, I don't know as I feel comfortable using that average, because that's not a fall delivery price. That's a cash price. But it's a place that, as an extension, as an academic, I can refer you to where I got it. Right? Same thing, I use the 1977 all U.S. average from Argus. My understanding is there's an Argus speaker later today. You can question him about those. I'm just pulling Argus's numbers, okay? Wheat, those were bids to the authors. You can read that in the footnote. Sunflowers, these are known contract bids as provided to the authors. The $6 price, Aaron, was from our discussion a year ago, okay? I'm not sure if you can get $6 oats, but I'll talk about the oat budget. So then let's switch from price discovery to average yields, okay? And you maybe throw in tomatoes. I'm gonna tell you how I got my 137 average. The last 3 years, when people sign up for our conference, if you're a farmer, if you check the farmer box, I ask you what your 5-year APH is. Actual production history, if you use crop insurance. If you don't use crop insurance, you can still do it, right? Across your farm, what's your actual yield history for corn, soybeans, wheat, in each of these categories? So this is, in my opinion, as good as a USDA NASS survey, which we know is distorted by farmer responses. So this is what was provided to me by farmer audiences. The sample size was 159 over 3 years. We average, 60 operations or so, with a range over here. So I'm gonna talk about a 137, a 43, a 61, and a 1708. Those numbers were very explicitly cherry-picked as the average yield for Ohio farmers into my enterprise budgets, as captured by this stapled handout, okay? Or on your smartphone. All right, so here's the organic corn budget. If you'll all pull that up, because I'm going to get into a spot where I'm going to turn into a fast talker, and there's going to be lots of numbers, because I feel like I got a lot of content to cover in 50 minutes, and I know I'm going to be trimming some, but if you look at the cover page, this is how you read the Ohio enterprise budgets. You read them by looking at this center column. I refer to this as the center standardized column. Okay, so here's my 137. Ohio, in Ohio, we do 20% below on the yield, and we do 20% above. And here's the tool. Here's the tool. The tool is the fourth column. I think yours are black and white, but there's lots of yellow cells. Yellow cells are where you can put in your numbers when you download it offline. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, but you can put in here 150. If your budget is a 150, you're budgeting for 150, you can go through it. Here's my $7.05, cherry picked from the Argus report this week. That's a cash price, so that's not a prediction for fall prices. That's just using the tool. You put in there what you predict you can get in the fall, or what you have, bushels locked in for. This also allows you to put in your nutrient budget, okay? In Ohio, you might fall out of bed, but we can get poultry litter delivered and applied for $55 a ton. That's based on farmer surveys. So my question to you as a farmer is, here's the question to you in different states. Question number 5. We know based on our Ohio survey, the #1 nutrient used on organic grain farms is poultry litter. So to help me standardize my organic corn budget, right now I'm just only talking about litter. If you don't use litter, that's fine. I'm trying to get a little bit of more information for me to continue to use as an organic grain economist. Okay, if you'll provide me that context, it'd be awesome. I truck and apply my own, less than 20 bucks a ton, or on the right-hand side is litter is custom hauled and applied to me for X amount of dollars. I give you kind of 4 different choices. If you don't like any of my choices, by all means, write in your choice, because that's better. Okay? All right, ready? Go. I want to know your answer. I'm going to collect it later anonymously. I see blank stares. So the survey is not going to bite you. It's not going to bite you. I'm asking for information, for feedback. If you're not a farmer, that's okay too. All right, let's move on. So in that budget, I continue to go down, and the drying, the hauling, the storage, and the handling, these essentially are from Ohio's custom rate survey. So I use kind of commercial custom rates in here. This year we used University of Minnesota's fin bin material for fuel, oil, and grease. We got feedback from an Ohio core group of farmers that said, Eric, your fuel, oil, and grease is too low, and your repairs are too low for an organic farm. So if you read my footnotes, these are cherry picked from like a 5-state region of what folks who complete a FinPAC analysis with the FinBin program at University of Minnesota. We do the program in Ohio. They do the program in Wisconsin, North Dakota, and so on. So that's how I get those numbers. You can read the footnotes. Crop insurance, I go to the University of Illinois Farm Doc page. I type up what I'm hoping to cover. That's approximates for those different levels of insurance, not different levels, different yield levels of insurance at a basic unit price. Miscellaneous, I spell that out. Custom hire, I have 0 because I have embedded in my nutrients that it's built into there. Hired labor, the average FinBin farm, you had about $7 in hired labor. Okay. Interest on operating capital in Ohio, we're using an 8%. Perhaps with the Fed reducing their rates, we could be at 7.5%. But that's all trying to be as relative as possible to today. This was revised just 2 days ago, so hopefully this is as real as possible. I'm going into deep detail on the corn budget because I'm not going into deep detail on the soybean and wheat budget or sunflower, but I'll show it to you. So then we get our variable costs, total variable cost per bushel, and then we go down to these fixed costs, labor charge. FinBin says, well, the average organic grain grower, corn grower, uses 4.34 hours. This is an Ohio rate that may not be suitable here in Wisconsin. The management charge is 5% of gross revenue. That's a farm business analysis number that has been used for decades. 5% of gross revenue. It rewards you as a manager for getting higher yield and higher revenue, higher prices, right? That's a management charge. Labor machinery, I'll explain that in a little bit. These land charges I'll explain too. This is Ohio average poor land, midland, highland. In Wisconsin, I trust that all those numbers are wrong. Okay, in Iowa, I trust that all those numbers are wrong, but it's a way to, that's why you have all this right-hand column to plug in your own number. There's some miscellaneous, and so then it comes down to total cost per acre, total cost per bushel. And then we got these lines down at the bottom that always confuse farmers, but I'm gonna have you look at two of them. Return above total costs, okay, is the first line item to look at, maybe put a star next to it. Return above total cost means you've paid for everything, okay? Return above variable cost means you've taken that total revenue number at the top and you've subtracted this 673, and that's how I get to 292. I'm gonna zoom in, if you'll allow me. Stay looking at the corn budget, and I'm gonna zoom in. Okay, this is on the document online. If you're in the online format, we do a quick stats where we do a low yield versus 20% above. So I just call it my average yield versus high yield. And this is where I say you gotta come to conferences because it pays to grow better crops. Okay, it pays to grow better crops. So I look at this real quickly. My return above total cost is a negative number for corn at a 705 at each of the yield levels. Okay, but I really think for us to compare across the board, generally speaking, our variable costs, otherwise known as our direct costs, are pretty similar across states. So a more fair number for you to use out of the Ohio budget is this return above variable costs. The average economist will also call this the contribution margin. Contribution to what? I have a $293 contribution margin after I pay for my variable costs. After I get this $673 paid for with this, I have another $292 to contribute to what? I think I heard it, fixed costs. This is what I can use to contribute to labor and management, to machinery overhead or servicing debt, and my land cost, whether it's property tax or land rent. That's contribution margin. So I think wire that in your head, that contribution margin we've been using more and more, especially on multi-state conferences. Which one? We're gonna have a slide at the end that compares sunflower, soybean, wheat, and corn, which has the greatest contribution margin. And I think going into 2025, that's probably the fair number to look at. I also do this thing, organic corn budget. This is a slide I created from 25 at 705, 24 at an average of 784, and 2023, I've averaged, these are Ohio averages. I trust in Wisconsin, you're much higher than that. 1013. So look at this. Look at the return above total costs from 25, 24 to 23. Okay, that's the total cost. There's, you know, back here, I didn't put 22 on here because in 2022, like, you were printing money, basically. So it wildly different from 22, 23, 24, 25, okay, from an economic perspective. So I think this is a good dose for my agronomy colleagues who say, try this, do this, this is great. From a context perspective, you still have to pay the bills, okay? And so we're in a wildly different place in 2025 or 2024. We need to focus on increasing yields so that our contribution margin, well, this is total costs. When you look at contribution margins, we had a $735 kitty to pay for labor and management, land costs, and equipment overhead in 2023. That's a wildly different number than 293, okay? 2025 is going to be wildly different than 2023 and even more so than 2022. But here's the alternative, okay, is I can compare, and there's been this scuttlebutt. 2 weeks ago in Ohio, I did not use the 705, okay? I think we're kind of in this weird bubble in Ohio where we're between the East Coast and you guys. There would be mutiny in Ohio if I threw up a 705. Okay, so a week or 2 weeks ago, I was talking and I was looking at, this is organic corn at 137,705, conventional corn. This is the Ohio trend line average as printed by USDA, 188 times 440, which at that time was the kind of the board price. You come down here, and today, I just changed this week to more of a Midwest, upper Midwest price is what I feel like. So take this at face value. I mean, the return above total costs, it's showing organic because of the additional labor demands. Okay, it really is a little bit more negative. If you take return above variable costs, that contribution margin, they're almost identical. So when you hear your colleagues, when we hear our colleagues that are producers saying, I don't know, I'm really considering exiting or entering or whatever it might be, I mean, those are real decisions that people are making. And they're real decisions in my mind because of this. Okay. I also think that, when you compare the labor and management between commodity corn and organic corn, if you're not budgeting that differently in your parallel production operations, you need to. How many in here are parallel producers? Wildly different labor demands. And FinBin at University of Minnesota confirms this, that at least in Ohio, the data says 2.3 hours per acre on conventional corn versus, what was my number, 4.3? An additional 2 hours at a minimum. And some of you don't like to be paid $19.50. You'll probably pay yourself better than that, okay? All right, so let's go. Any questions on corn before I more quickly, sorry, king corn is king corn. I take all the time in the world on king corn, and we're going to plow through soybeans, wheat, and sunflowers. Yes?
I'm just going to plug in the number that I overlooked for years when I was running my P&L. I'm a parallel farmer, conventional and organic row crop production.
Awesome.
The labor hours are one thing. The tractor hours are a number that so many people don't look at. The depreciation on how many hours we put on our tractors versus what we're doing is a number you really need to pay attention to.
The comment was, I'm really also paying attention to the number of hours put on my equipment, and I will say that's a weakness at this point in this budget is that we're probably not capturing that as well, the depreciation, the economic depreciation or the hours of depreciation on our equipment fleet. Very good point.
The other thing I'll plug in, when I do my P&Ls, I just run a spreadsheet and have every individual like you're looking at here. The number I like to see is my break-even yield and my break-even price. Those are numbers that's how you benchmark where you can adjust down in my estimation. So
absolutely. Thank you for the comment. The comment was in an individual situation, they like to see the break-even price at a particular, maybe an average yield, but then the opposite of that is if I'm given a certain price, what's my break-even yield? So it's the inverse of each other. Very good point. So thank you. Other comments on the organic corn budget? All right, let's go to soybeans. I'm using a 43 and a 61. I'll just refresh your memory. And a 1708 on 1,708 pounds on organic sunflowers. You can't quite see this, so I'm gonna zoom in, but if you flip to the second page of the stapled handout is soybeans. The third page is wheat. The fourth page is sunflowers. They're very small numbers, but you're hopefully able to see them there. I'm gonna zoom in. This is the soybean 2025 budget. It's the same kind of quick stats tab that we have on our Excel document of 43 versus 20% higher of 51. When we come down here to return above total costs, a negative 260 versus a negative 166 from I don't think I highlight it right. I don't. I wish I had return to variable costs highlighted, but you can kind of see it here, a 209 return to variable costs or a contribution margin versus if you're a better producer, quote unquote, you got this contribution of 369. So again, it pays to come to conferences to learn how to be better organic growers. Questions on soybeans? That's how quick I did soybeans. Okay, you have the tool. Download it. This is wheat. The same thing I do on wheat. 61 is the Ohio conference average, plus 20% is a 73, using a 750 plug price. And again, the wheat picture is pretty ugly. Okay, if you're following some of the social media things on some of the platforms, wheat generally gets beat up, and we heard a lot about folks hauling to the local elevator last summer. Again, we're fortunate in Ohio and one state away from Pennsylvania. We have some nice opportunities if you're willing to truck. So again, the budget that you perhaps pulled up, I think was still my Ohio reference. I think I was using $8 on the wheat budget in Ohio and maybe a little bit higher price on the corn Ohio budget, but this is my Wisconsin slide deck. So Sunflowers, I put them on the same page. This is your fourth page in your stapled packet. Again, Ohio growers are reporting kind of generally everybody grows this new seed Hornet oilseed sunflower in Ohio, 1708 versus 20% higher. When you come down to it, the sunflower budget in Ohio, this is a 32-cent budget. I know a few years ago that was wildly better, okay? So we get down here to the return above total cost. We're still in kind of this negative space, but when you look at the return to variable costs, you know, you're still competing with soybeans in this contribution margin. The last one I'll pull up, and you don't have it in there. I think I slipped this in this morning, Erin. So a year ago, Erin and I worked on a project with one of her collaborators. We talked about an oat budget. This is in, if you scroll down on that QR code that I gave you, it's, I think, hidden in the 23 or 24 oat budget. I just put it in here to show you that the partner that we were talking with on a Zoom call just couldn't understand why we weren't getting more growers to grow organic oats. And you know, I don't know, that's a fairly short conversation. So, you know, everybody kind of wants their cut, and I hopefully out of this presentation you're saying, you know, protect your farmer portion of that cut. But we plugged in at $6, and it was, I'm not sure what the organic oat market is right now. Is it $6? Can you get $6?
Well, $7.50 for 38-pound oats. So much of the value of the oats is in the test weight.
So heavyweight oats, $7.50. We could rerun this. That's exactly 25% more. Oh no, sorry, about 20% more. So, you know, it's probably gets you up closer to a wheat budget at this point. And so, anyways, that resource is out there. We think we have in all the compartments that if you're writing an oat budget, we think we have the compartments for you to put in the numbers in the tool. It even has Aaron's brand on it up here. It's like we coexist together, Ohio State and OGRAIN. That's good. Next page. The question is, how does OSU get land values? Sometimes this comes up, so I'm pivoting to fixed costs. I like to talk about fixed costs because they're often an afterthought with the exception of land. But so there's three key fixed costs there, and I'll show you this in just a minute. But our farm office website, farmoffice.osu.edu, we have this farm management tab where we talk about Ohio cash rents, custom rates, enterprise budgets is a QR code that I led you to. This is where we house all our FinBin data and some other things that we put in here. If you want to see that I actually got a $55 per ton on applied poultry litter, it's down here in this fertilizer report. That's our farm office website. My colleague Barry Ward always does annually. I don't know if Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, I know Iowa does, but a lot of folks in the academic space are doing this land value research annually. And so we do it, or Barry does it, and he gets a poor quality land, average, and top. And so we just simply plug in here. We survey not just farmers, because you have a reputation, farmers, of biasing the data. You tell me which way, okay? So we survey lenders, accountants, insurance agents, landowners, and farmers, okay? So, and then we give 3 breaks. If you go to the USDA data, they survey one subset of people. They survey farmers, and they get one number, okay? So to be fair to everybody on both sides of the game, the landowners and the tenants, you know, in Ohio, we've come up in Western Ohio is where the most of our row crops are, and this is not an organic value. This is just everybody, 185, 241, 299. That's how we got our value. So I throw in here, go back to your quick survey. This isn't just a passive thing. I'm asking you this question, just for my insight across other states. The question is, question 4, it's in your survey. You have to look at your survey. Question 4, in my region, I pay a blank premium per acre for organic land rent versus my conventional land rent. I'm interested in knowing that number. There's a lot of scuttlebutt about what do we, you know, we pay more, we don't pay more, we pay the same, we shouldn't have to pay more because we're doing all these ecosystem services. So whatever camp you're in, at the end of the day, the lenders probably know the number, okay? But I'm just asking you as a farmer, like if you'll anonymously share that data with me, I'd appreciate it. So I'm gonna put this up as a corn, soy, wheat, sunflower comparison. So I do corn at 137,705, soy at 43,1977, wheat at 61 times 750, sunflower at 1708. So this has kind of been my proverbial case farm from an organic economics perspective, a 4-crop rotation that includes those 4 crops. They may or may not work for you, but a lot of our farmers use them. So then I come down here, I don't have time to go through all of these. We've kind of already gone through them, but at the end of the day, it comes down to this bottom line, return above total costs. Well, let's throw that out because they're all negative in 2025, okay? They're all negative. So I think it's really important to look at this contribution margin, the return above variable costs. So we have a 293, a 209, a 58, and a 231. I don't have oats in here because that wasn't truly part of the Ohio 4-crop rotation. So I still think when you look at the contribution margin, assuming lots of other things are equal, corn is maybe still the shining star, okay, from an enterprise budgeting perspective. But you have beans and sunflowers. We're down to this competition now of who loses less. Okay, in Ohio, we've been doing this presentation like how to lose less in 2025. So when it comes down to these 4 crops, corn in these dynamics are losing less. Before I go on to the tricky 2, any questions about these 4 budgets? I want to talk about labor and management and machinery costs because there's 2 questions on the survey on there. Yes, sir, I'm back.
Why is the wheat control 0 for corn compared to soybeans? I can understand wheat being 0, but for corn.
I'm going to get into this machinery cost. We have budgeted in weed control down in this machinery overhead. That's why the soybean cost is relatively higher than everything else, is because we assume that the equipment fleet that you have to manage weeds in soybeans is a more expensive equipment fleet. And I'll show you, it includes a tine weeder, it includes some other things. At this point in time, I do not have a flame weeder in the corn budget. And I reference Bill Lazarus's work up at Minnesota. He doesn't have a flame weeder. Imagine that in his equipment fleet. But I know there's some guys here. You can give me some retail costs and I can build it in. But this is sincerely H2A labor. That $100 in soybeans or dry beans. My talk a week ago was in Michigan and they're all dry bean guys and every acre gets H2A workers over them. Good question. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So the seed cost is just the corn, soy, wheat. It doesn't include cover crop seed?
So if you study our budget, there's a cover crop line under the soil amendment. I'm not sure if everybody agrees with me that that's where we put it, but if you look in your stapled packet, you look underneath generally the poultry litter line. I think the next line down is kind of a green manure line or cover crops. So we have budgeted, I think in every one of them. I'm not sure if sunflower does, but great question. The question was, do you have budgeted for sunflowers? Or do you have budgeted for cover crops? I didn't repeat that question, but I am now. So it's in the nutrients and soil amendments. It's in there, yes.
Eric, do you have anywhere it's in the detailed one for certification costs?
Certification cost, I think, it's in this miscellaneous. It's in this fixed cost miscellaneous. So it's deep in the footnotes, okay? But like all geeky economists, it's there somewhere. It's baked into the numbers. Great question. Aaron's question was, do you have baked in certification costs? And deeply I do, okay? All right, I'm over halfway through here. Question 7 on your survey. And I think there was a roundtable about this maybe yesterday or on modern row crop organic. There was some discussion about how this would maybe be coming up. I'm not sure if that individual's in here or not, or if that anybody that was in that table. 2 questions I have for you from fixed costs. How do you account for owner's labor and management cost in your enterprise budgets? I use the university extension estimates. I estimate my desired salary. I don't budget anything for L&M. I just keep all the profits, which means also the losses. I don't estimate this well at all. I'm being very humble. I need to improve this area. Or option C, we get paid to do this. Please don't select the last option. It's just for comedy, okay? So if you would sincerely fill that out before we would have any discussion, I would appreciate it. I'm going to show you just a thought I have. So again, at the Ohio Organic Grains Conference this year, we got 74 responses. What do you budget? A number. We were asking that group for a number. We actually gave them $50 ranges. Actually, we asked this over the last 2 years. In 24, they were budgeting 156. If you remember the profitability dynamics, it made sense that this number is quite a bit higher than 2025. The average farmer at the Ohio Organic Grains Conference was budgeting 103. And I say budgeting. That doesn't mean by the end of the year you're going to be able to pay yourself 103. That means you're budgeting for. Okay? And my quick digression here is, and I don't know who's sitting in the room, but I'm just going to say this. If you don't budget for your labor and management, somebody else will use that money. That money will go somewhere else. So I often have this discussion with growers and they say, well, I can't pay myself anything. No. You better budget so you can pay yourself something. You better budget so you can service your equipment debt. You obviously are budgeting to pay land rent, but there are other people in this room that sell things that would like you to not acknowledge you paying yourself or servicing debt. Okay? Am I being clear enough? That's my opinion, but I think generally this $103 can go to somebody else real fast if you don't budget for it. Okay, all right. So this was the category 0 to 50, 51 to 100. You can see the categories. Most everybody in Ohio was budgeting 0 to 53. My proposal to you in this audience is neither of these 2 levels are economically sustainable. You can't budget 0 to 50. I didn't allow people to select 0 because I was scared they would select 0. Okay? I also think budgeting over $300 an acre for labor and management is probably on the high side of owner's labor and management. Okay? We could do that in 2022 and 2023. We can't in 25. But if you start by budgeting 0, then you're going to spend that $50 somewhere else. Okay, and that's the second part of my talk, is do on-farm research to figure out if you need to spend that money somewhere else, all right? Last part about that fixed cost, own machinery and equipment. How do you budget for it in your operation? I use the university extension estimates for my state for that enterprise. I use the extension custom rates. I'm going to give you an example. I take a percentage of the current market value of my equipment fleet and distribute that that value over my acres. I'll show you that example. I don't estimate this well or at all. I need to improve in this area of budgeting. E, what are you talking about? Okay, don't select E, please. But I'm going to talk about these 3. I've been doing this talk in the conventional space for 5 or 6 years because conventional farmers don't do this well, okay? The extension number for machinery and equipment. So those of you who have extension services who write enterprise budgets, they budget for this overhead equipment charge. In the budget that sits in front of you, the top page, this is the organic corn equipment overhead, $100.87. Look at it and give me a thumbs up so you know where I'm getting it. Do you just use that? Well, how do I get that? Well, you go to the second tab on the tool that's online, and it goes through and it says, again, you can read my reference, my source. This is Bill Lazarus at University of Minnesota. I know there's some Minnesota folks here. We go through and we cherry pick his chisel plow, his high-speed disc, his field cultivator, his tine weeder, his row cultivator, and so on for 30-foot equipment. We go through the full depreciation per acre. We project how many acres and hours that goes over, to your point, sir, and we come up with this number. mathematically speaking, $100.87. It's an average, so it's wrong for everybody, but it's a starting point, okay? That's option one on owned equipment. If you're not budgeting for owned equipment, choose one of these three options, please. Okay, otherwise you're going to dilapidate your equipment over time, and you're going to spend big in 2022, and you're not going to have any money to spend in 2025. The second option is use university custom rates. So I went back through Ohio State's university custom rates, and I said, all right, we disc rip, we field cultivate twice, we plant corn, we rotary hoe twice, we row cultivate twice, and we harvest, and it comes up with 192. That's fine, use 192. Just figure out how you're doing it. Just budget for it. The third option is perhaps my favorite, is, but this assumes you're keeping your farm balance sheet up to date, okay? The easiest one is to take X percent, pick whatever percent you want. 10% is my example. Take the total current market value of your equipment on your balance sheet, okay? And then multiply it by that percentage, that replacement value. The example I use is an $850,000 equipment fleet. Times a 10% replacement rate, that's basically saying I want to replace that entire equipment fleet in 10 years at a 10% rate. So I take that $85,000, I distribute it over my acres, perhaps it's 1,000 acres, and my number becomes $85 an acre that I have to budget for. It's not cash necessarily that goes out of your hand unless you're servicing debt. And many of us are servicing debt. But it's saying, hey, I'm figuratively setting this money aside in my budget, because if I don't budget for it, someone will take it. Okay? And you have to psychologically prepare yourself to say, I don't need somebody else to take my money when I need to be budgeting for it for me to purchase new paint, for me to upgrade my equipment fleet. So those are the three options that I like to talk about. Questions or comments on the tricky two and the budgets before I switch to the second thing that I think can help you evaluate your cost of production? Yes, sir.
You made a reference to the roundtable group last night. Were you asking about if we had a conversation on the labor costs, or what were you?
It was how do you budget for owner's labor? Was that how it came up was there a discussion on that?
I didn't get into it too much last night, honestly, but there's been a lot of conversation either on the Facebook pages. This is something I work on a lot too. But, I guess in my operation, I do have a line item for labor per acre on both my conventional and organic operation. And I guess the easiest way I can derive a number is I add up my W-2. I'm a W-2 wager on my farming operation. We started doing that when they started the PDP.
Deeper discussion.
My full-time hired man is W-2. We have some 1099 that we file. Add those numbers up, take your gross wages, and if you're one entity, you can divide it over your acres if you need a benchmark number. It's a little bit more difficult when you have organic and conventional, because obviously your labor hours are more expensive on the organic side. So I use a factor of 0.7 versus 0.3. So
Oh, that's good.
that's the best number I can come up with in my operation. It usually comes out pretty well. You know, that $60 to $70 an acre on the conventional side versus that $30 something an acre on the organic versus conventional side. So you just have to find a benchmark number and go with it.
You have to do something, right? I mean, you have to budget for that owner's labor, and I applaud you for using the W-2 labor. Like, that's very trackable, right? It's like you know what you spent. It's a solid number, and so you can use that number, track it 3-year average, and then use it to project. Obviously, at the end of the year, you can use a firm number. At this point in the year, in January, you can firmly project or calculate 2024s, right?
And for like machinery, equipment cost, one thing people forget to factor in is your maintenance, but it's part of your machinery cost.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a benchmark number, take your, I'm highly leveraged. We upgrade equipment. I get a kick out of people, I don't have the machinery cost because I just run on equipment. Well, then you got maintenance costs, you got to factor in. If you're upgrading equipment, you're fixing old equipment, you have a cost.
Mm-hmm.
So we have great equipment, and so we have machinery payments. They're usually depreciated over 5 years.
Yep.
So take your average machinery cost per year, divide it out over acres if you have to, and we'll add a maintenance cost.
Yep.
Your maintenance, add up your maintenance bills, you're keeping a balance sheet and a cash flow, and you're doing your projected versus you have to, which everybody in this room should be doing. You should be updating your balance sheet every single month and giving it to your lender, not having your lender fill it out for you for the year. But I'm lecturing a little bit, but suffer the hard way. But you have all those numbers in front of you, just use them.
Yeah.
You just gotta put them in the spreadsheet.
Yep. It's forcing yourself to do it. Appreciate the commentary. Want to spend the last 10 or 12 minutes, if you will. It's my objective number 2 is to really encourage everybody to do your own on-farm research. At Ohio State since 2014, we've been doing this program called eFields. It's basically an on-farm, we have a digital version of this, and I handed out, I think Thomas got you all hard copies of it. This is the first year, if you flip to that inside front cover, and I am going to refer to projects. So in the next 10 minutes, we're going to blitz 4 projects. So if you want to take that eFields booklet out, I'm going to refer to a couple projects in there, some better than others. But one of the unique things is I had been asking for 2 years, and I've been a participant in this eFields program at Ohio State since the inception. I've been saying, how can we call out highlighted certified organic fields or trials? And we did this year. And so you're going to see a label. That you're going to see the certified organic label on the 8 or 9 projects out of the 100 and some projects that were done on certified organic land. So that was very new. So we're excited about that. So I'm here to spout off about those 8 projects. Okay, they're on-farm research. They're not on station. My context is almost always on farm. Our goal in the eFields program was to go from the progression of research is, hey, I did a block with sulfate of potash and a block without. Great data. It's a start, okay? But eFields has really helped our farmers go from asking, university researchers are saying, well, where's the reps? Where's the randomization? How do you account for field variability? The answer is you don't with blocks. And blocked research projects have very limited they have no statistical power. They have limited value, in my opinion. So we've tried to get guys to go from this, in this progression of research, from having replicated and random, from having blocks to having 4 reps in a randomized trial. And I just lay out like just a couple samples of what we do, alternating reps, 4 reps, randomized, and so on. That's the gold standard. That's where we want you to be on your farm, and it's not difficult with the precision ag technology that you have. Very easy to do when you're from the seat of your cab. I'm going to highlight, I'm not sure how many I'll get through, but I'm going to highlight a couple of trials. So you can see this. I'm asking you to turn to page 98 and 99. So the way this report is laid out, it's meant to be very farmer friendly and super simple. On the left-hand side is the background information, the study design. On the right-hand side, there's always a chart that says results with a statistical analysis. So our low-tech versus high-tech planter trial, we had a farmer, I'll reference him because all the farmers that I work with have given me permission to use their name. Pages 98 and 99 in Lipsick, Ohio. Levi Hazelman did this. He had a Fendt Momentum planter that they just purchased and kind of after the fact wanted to kind of evaluate low-tech versus high-tech. We hope to do this again because it was a dry year in Ohio on all of our trials. Fendt Momentum planter with hydraulic downforce, active downforce, pneumatic closing wheels, and electric drives versus 2001 John Deere 7200 with spring downforce and spike and rubber closing wheel on the back of it. Again, I'm pulling up pages 98 and 99. I encourage you to go to that page. You can see the old planter here. We did our best to kind of make it apples to apples. And this was the results, okay? On the right-hand side of that page 98 and 99, we had, when you do field research, this number is very important, this least significant difference. That means 21 bushels. If the difference between the 2 averages after the statistical analysis is done is less than 21 bushels, they always, in our book, they get the same letter, okay? That means that they were statistically the same. Or researchers will also say there was no statistical difference in yield. Okay? That statement is different than this question. Was there a numerical difference in yield? Should the numerical difference matter in your decision-making process? Generally, no. Look for the A's. If there's no statistical difference, there's no statistical difference. There was some noise, so the CV means the coefficient of variation. You want that number to be as low single digits as you can, that percent of variation. So this was a pretty noisy trial, admittedly. Okay, but when you analyze the 4 reps, no statistical difference. I got to move quickly because I'm about out of time. Here we go. Next trial, flaming for weed control. At the Ohio conference here, I know you both places you had a flaming panel. This is page 66 and 67. So if you want to take your eFields book and flip to 66, 67, it should be another one of those organic trials. This is Doug Yoder in Central Ohio, Plain City, Ohio, built, I think it's Red Dragon units. Flamed this trial. You can see kind of the treatments, flamed versus not flamed. Trusting that you'll read all the details. When I put the red boxes up, I'm looking on page 67 and I'm zooming in. There was no statistical difference in yield. Doug's research question, and all the eFields trials come to us as extension folks as farmer questions. His research question was, by flaming that corn and setting it back a stage, a leaf stage is what he perceived, will my harvest moisture be higher? That was his question, in addition to the weed control. So, and so he was really watching these two numbers, the moisture, and so there was no statistical difference in moisture, no statistical difference in yield, but what there was a nice difference of was overall average weed severity. So this was the untreated plots and the species that we counted for versus the flamed and the species we counted for and the severity. So I think the take-home message is that the severity of the untreated was greater than that, no statistical difference in yield. I'm sorry, I'm moving quickly. So I'll be here all day, so if you have questions. Let's go to the biologicals. So another trial that Levi Hazelman did in Lipsick, Ohio, was biologicals. All the rage, right? Lots of talk, lots of discussion, and there's about 4 gazillion biologicals out on the market, okay? So if you sell biologicals, I'm sorry, but there's really close to that many. Okay, there's a lot of them out there, and so it's really tough for university folks to keep up with testing them. And frankly, that's to your advantage. Okay, but as a farmer, doggone it, you better be testing them. So this is our team. This is pages 60 and 61. Turn in your eFields booklet. These are the field notes we make, a couple county educators I was working with. Now you get to see that Fent momentum planner that Levi has, and it's coming through, and this had, this is just eye candy, so I'm just gonna click forward. You know, it had in-furrow juice that it was, that's how we put everything in furrow, but this is all tricked out. I mean, this is the most tricked out planner you can get. European, it was geeked out, okay? You know, you planner people, you get all geeked out about planners. So look at the results on page 61. Very important for you farmers to read this now with the flip side eyes, because now I got numbers that are below the check, and so farmers are saying, it's hurting me. It's not hurting you. They're all A's. There's no statistical difference in yield on the 4 reps. Randomized, replicated 4 times, no statistical difference in yield. Please read it that way. If you really want to read it the right way as a farmer, since there's no statistical difference in yield, the only cost to you was time and product. That's how I read this data. Don't read it that you lost yield. You didn't lose yield. You just lost the cost of the product. Okay? All right, Bavaria Bassiana, it's a product that lots or folks are talking about in Ohio, okay? It was in furrow. It was on seed. This is the on seed version. This is Doug Yoder doing the trial again. This is page 46 and 47. If you want to turn in your eFields booklet, page 46 and 47. Here come the results. Again, please read this with unbiased eyes. Dry year in Ohio, limited rainfall, less than average yield for this farmer in general, no statistical difference in yield. In 2025, the only thing that mattered here, and I'm speaking as an economist, not as anybody opposed to selling anything or whatnot, I'm speaking as an economist. The only significance in this trial is the cost of the product. Next trial, page 72 and 73. This is a manure side dress trial. I posted this on Facebook. This was talked about on Facebook. Page 72, 73. So this farmer came to us after the fact. He had already put on 2.4 tons of poultry litter and worked it in. This isn't the exact field, but this is the exact equipment that was used. This is a wheat field, but this was fall applied 2.5 tons per acre of fall litter worked in. And that was last fall of 23. Comes to us this spring and says, hey, I'd like to put some side dress manure on there. I got access to pig manure. I got I'm going to put on almost 4,000 gallons. If we use a book value of manure at triple 40, loosely triple 40 at times 4, you're putting on 160, 160, 160. You with me? So you're adding another 160. We got some pushback on Facebook on this trial because we didn't get enough yield. So this is what it looks like. Semi-tankers hauling to this university research tanker on-farm situation. It's just a 5-shank injector. You can go in really late in corn. I would have expected a better yield bump. There was not really a great yield bump. I put this picture in because the local county educator flew it, and you can see we pulled out the replicated and randomized spots. With the combine monitor, you all can do replicated randomized research really easy on your farm if you have yield monitors and planter monitors. Yield data, results, 145 versus 168. The LSD was large, 22 bushels. And so this just made it statistically significant, a 23 bushel difference. So there's a lot to talk about in here. There was plenty of nutrients. It should have done better. It was very dry. I mean, in Ohio, it essentially turned off dry after that. But at the end of the day, kind of a noisy trial, but still ended up in a statistically significant yield difference, okay? I do put this trial in here. This is a wheat trial. You guys up here might not even plant wheat. It's that grass that you plant in the fall and you harvest it in July, and it's wheat. Okay, we grow it in Ohio. Okay, but this is a organic nitrogen sources. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Fall poultry litter alone at 95 versus poultry litter and bone meal. An additional 20 units of bone meal. It's a product we can get quite readily in Ohio. Chilean nitrate feather meal. I only put this in here because we don't put economics in every one of our trials in e-fields. We're trying to get better. We're trying to do that. But the takeaway on this trial is really important. You say poultry litter by itself, it has a B. It's the only one that has a B. It's the lowest yielding. Yes. Poultry litter alone was the lowest yielding. And with Chilean, 20 pounds of additional Chilean was the highest yielding. Well, you should always use it with Chilean. We're not talking about the Canadian or European equivalencies in this discussion, but the data says, well, you should until you add the last column. Look at the last column, and the lowest yielding was the greatest return. So the one with the lowest yield had the highest return over nitrogen cost. So there's a reason to do on-farm research as it relates to cost of production. Sometimes we can take a yield hit. It's not cool to talk about the lowest yielding trial at the coffee shop, but we also don't talk about profitability at the coffee shop. Okay? Last thing I'll end on. I know I'm at time, aren't I? Okay. Am I good, Aaron? Last item I want to talk about, because I spend a bunch of my time in the conventional world in crop insurance and in farm bill policy. You all know you're getting ARA payments, right? Does everybody raise your hand? Give me a thumbs up if you know you're getting $42 an acre. I took that slide out because I needed to cut time. $42 an acre for corn, $29 for soybeans, and $30 for wheat per acre last year. Give me a thumbs up. Money's coming in March. Okay, it'd be a little offset.
Change the oat number then.
I don't know about the oat number. That's right. Yeah. The 78. The oat number, yeah, was probably one of the best. It wasn't as good as cotton, but it was pretty good. So north-south battle in the farm bill, right? So the cotton and rice people, they got their cut, and we got more crops. Hay, ironically, hay acres got a lump of coal. They got nothing. They got nothing in the ARA, okay? Poor lobby for hay, Okay, crop insurance win. I'm going to end on this. For those of you who use multi-peril crop insurance policies, I don't know if there's a crop insurance speaker at the conference this year. Okay, so this is the one important win that in Ohio, OFA, and nationwide OFA, maybe others have lobbied for, and I appreciate it. In 2025, you're going to have the option for organic crops will have enterprise units by practice type. Okay, this needs to be talked about more for transitioning farmers and parallel production farmers. So what that means is basically it allows you to keep your organic APH tied with an organic price in an organic bin, figurative organic bin. Your transition acres and bushels really get kind of lumped in with your conventional bushels because they have the same price. Okay, I think this is a really important policy win for you is transitioning and parallel production farmers. An example from our family farm, if you pull up the pitch sheet from RMA or your insurance agent, there's I don't know, for every level, this is only 75% crop insurance on wheat. And there's like 30 lines, 30 different options, okay? And that's just in 75% coverage. You go to 80, you get another. Well, the point I bring up is, when you get down here to the bottom, and you may not be able to see it, down here at the bottom, the last 4 lines all have an EO next to them, an enterprise unit by organic practice. I highlight these two because I got to walk up and look at them. So the premium difference here is a whopping 38 or 40 cents. So if you want to kind of keep your organic bushels separate on your enterprise policy from your conventional corn, it costs you about 40 cents, 45 cents in this policy, in this particular policy. Your policies will all be different. I'm just showing you the relative difference. This is a win if you use multi-peril crop insurance. So my summary, as you get ready to calculate your cost of production for 25, I really encourage you to stay focused on what we have acknowledged as the hurdles for organic transition in Ohio. Those being markets, those being weed control, good record keeping so that you can protect the organic seal, and finally nitrogen or nutrient management. If you're not focused on those 3 or 4 kind of hurdles, you might spend money and you might spend more money than you need to in particular areas, and maybe that's the takeaway today. So my wife and kids attended. There was a game on Monday night. I wasn't going to do this. This is a long time ago, but OH, do I have an OH out there? So anyways, we celebrated the Buckeye win on Monday. So I will do a shameless promotion of the North American Manure Expo, only because I'm with an organic crowd. But Wisconsin hosted this, I think, 2 years ago. In my hometown of Wauseon, Ohio, we are hosting the North American Manure Expo next summer, July 30th and 31st. If you want to see all the colors of manure spreaders demoed in the same field on the same day, come join us July 30th and 31st. Don't forget the... Yeah, absolutely. I think we posted this on Facebook, I'm not sure, but the North American Manure Expo. It's hosted between Canada and some U.S. colleges, and Ohio's the host this year. Would love to have you there. Am I still being recorded? Okay, I was going to say some explicit things, but there's going to be a lot of poop thrown around. In Ohio on July 30th and 31st. So very sincere about filling out that farmer survey. If you would just leave it or hand it to my son, Thomas, if you'll raise your hand, Thomas, or anybody that's willing to collect it. I've gone long. I appreciate your time. And our conference is coming up. We'd love to have you there, modeled after Aaron Silva's program here. Thanks so much.